And can you guys give me a thumbs up if you see the screen? Okay. Coming up right now. Can you guys see it? Excellent. Thank you. Well, this is where we left off. Remember that was the confrontation matrix. That was the first matrix following the SWOT analysis when we did our SWOT matching. Now what we're doing is prioritizing those matched items using this confrontation matrix. Extending that SWOT one step farther is the impact probability matrix. And what we're looking at here is pulling the factors that were identified on the SWOT in opportunities and threats, only opportunities and threats, and we're putting them in this particular chart. And what we're looking at is the impact of those opportunities or threats, and whether or not that threat or that opportunity, what's the probability of it occurring. So it's a two variable map. Looks like this here. So you can see we got going vertically on the left-hand side, impact going from low to high, and then probability horizontally on the bottom going also low to high. Now on this particular matrix, remember that you will need to include all of the opportunities and threats that you identified in your SWOT analysis. So for your final paper, if you have 7 opportunities and 5 threats, I'm expecting to see 12 entries in this matrix here. Now, I know it can get really busy if you write them all out. So what I would recommend that you do is just put the locator number. Let's say if it was opportunity 1, just place it somewhere on here, O1. Opportunity 2 would be O2, somewhere on here, threat 1, T1. That way you don't have to write out all of the descriptor on this, and makes it a little bit easier for you to do that. All right, so let's explain this here. Again, what we're looking at is potential impact and the probability of that risk or opportunity occurring. And we can see that at the bottom left-hand side here, we've got a threat that's increasing fuel prices. But we notice then that the potential impact of this threat is low. And you can see that the probability of that particular event occurring is also low. Now, going up to the top left-hand side, there's another threat there, recession. And you can see then on recession, the potential impact on that, if it did occur, would be high, but the probability of that particular threat occurring is low. Going over to the right-hand side, you see shift to internet sales. That's an opportunity. Potential impact on the firm, if they were to pursue that opportunity, would be high. And the probability of them being able to pursue that opportunity, that means they have the resources and capabilities, is also high. And then right below that, new manufacturing, which is also another opportunity, the same thing. Now, what decision makers are looking for are the ones that live in this area over here. They're looking for the top right quadrant. That's what they're looking for. They're not concerned about the stuff that lives down here, not so much over here. They're looking for this stuff up here. High probability, high impact. That's what they're looking for. So what we've done here then, we've taken that SWOT analysis, we prioritized those factors that we've matched, and then we've looked at the opportunities and threats, and now we've done a further prioritization of those in impact and probability. So we're really looking at this SWOT through better lenses of analysis. All right, let's move on to another chart here. This is called the positioning matrix, and this is kind of a fun one here for you. Positioning matrix is a 2-variable matrix once again. One of the variables must always be price. The other variable can be some sort of specialization, quality, brand image, reputation, distribution, whatever the specialization is that you might want to choose for measuring would be a good one for the second one. So it's two variable, as I mentioned here. Let's take a look at how this one works. Here's some ideas of other specializations: quality, service, reliability, warranty, brand image, or variety. Those could be other examples of specialization. All right. Take a look and let some people in. All right, here we go. Here's an example of the matrix. You can see here it's a 2x2 matrix. We've got quality and price as our two variables here. And again, price must be one of them. So quality is the chosen second one here. And in this one here, you notice that the areas of measurement, price and quality, are indicated internally on this chart. Now you can either use this format or you can put them to the perimeter of the chart. It's your choice. We have 4 competitors in this industry: Jack in the Box, Burger King, McDonald's, and Wendy's. And from what this one is saying, it says Jack in the Box price is lower than Burger King and McDonald's, but also their quality is lower than Burger King or McDonald's or Wendy's. They're in the bottom left-hand side. They have low price, low quality. McDonald's, higher quality than Jack in the Box, higher quality than Burger King. And their price is a little bit higher than Jack in the Box, but less than Burger King. Burger King, quality, a little bit better than Jack in the Box, but lower than McDonald's. And pricing is higher than McDonald's. And then Wendy's, higher quality, higher price than all of them. Pretty easy to read, isn't it? All right, I have a question for you. Spencer says, wow, Wendy's got the best. Well, I tell you what, Spence, let's throw something out there and see where you rate these guys, okay? Brady says, I disagree. Jack's slaps. Okay, I'm not quite sure what Jack slaps means, but schmacks. Okay, schmacks. All right. Here we go. I'm going to give you guys a few companies, and you tell me where you think these companies should be located on this matrix. First one, Del Taco. Where would you put Del Taco?
I would put Del Taco right around the same area as McDonald's, probably just because of the low quality and affordable, or in other words, cheaper prices.
Okay, so Del Taco somewhere around here, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good one. All right, good. All right, I have another one for you guys. Are you ready? Chick-fil-A.
I put that up by Wendy's because the price is decently high and the quality is too.
Okay, so you would say that Chick-fil-A, they have high quality and high price, so it'd be in this area, certainly in the top right quadrant, right? Somewhere up in here. Is that a fair estimate?
I agree.
All
Yeah.
right. Here's the last one. In-N-Out. Where would you put In-N-Out?
A little higher than Wendy's.
As far as what? Price or quality?
Both.
So In-N-Out has higher price, but also has higher quality. So would they be up here?
No, I'd say they're high quality, low price.
High quality, low price. So Bryce says high quality, low price. So that would be high quality over here, but lower than Wendy's. Is that what you're saying, Bryce?
Yes, I'm pretty
Right
sure. Yeah.
here. Okay. All right. Okay. So now let me ask you this question. Having that general information that In-N-Out has higher quality, but yet lower prices than the competition out there, many of the competitors, would you be able to exploit that? Could you leverage that? Could you be able to gain some advantage over your competition with that information? And by the way, does In-N-Out exploit their quality? Do they? Do they market their quality? Isn't that one of their big selling features, their quality? James, what do you think?
I think it is, although I must say I've never seen an In-N-Out advertisement.
Oh, you've never seen it? You've never seen an In-N-Out advertising?
Yeah, It seems like it
Oh.
passes more through word of mouth than anything else.
Yeah, they do. They do have occasional ads that you'll see on the television about their In-N-Out burgers. And yeah, one of the big things that they do talk about is quality that you can taste. I think that's their little slogan on that, quality you can taste. And so they do exploit the fact that they do have high quality over others. And Lauren says, agreed, high quality, then the rest with lower price, you can leverage that. Thank you, Lauren. Very good. All right. Moving on, guys. We are going to take a look at 5 forces analysis. Now, this was identified by Michael Porter. Michael Porter saying that in every industry, those firms that are competing in these various industries, there are forces that have an effect on those firms in those industries, and depending on what level of power that these forces have, how great that force is, will have an effect on that firm's ability to set its pricing, and by extension, determine its profitability. So the more these forces exist, it's going to have a negative effect on the firm's ability to have higher profitability. So let's take a look at these different 5 forces. What we're now measuring is the level of these different forces. First one here that we're, oh, I'm sorry, we should go back to this. Here we go. Here are the 5 forces. We have bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of buyers. We have threat from substitute products or services. We have threat of new entry and competitive rivalry that exists within an industry. 5 forces. So let's start with the first one here. This would be suppliers. Now, these are those companies that sell to your company the products or services that you need to manufacture or continue your services. They have more power when there are fewer of them selling to many buyers. So if there's a few number of suppliers and there's multiple buyers out there, they can pick and choose who they want to sell their products or provide their services to. The second one here, there are only a few substitutes that are available to you as the buyer instead of using that supplier's product or service. So you really have little choice than to buy from that supplier. When that then exists, that's giving that supplier much more power. They know that you have few options in getting supplies for what you need to make your product. Third, their product is the one that is most effective, is most unique to you, the buyer. This is the one that works the best. This is the part that is the most efficient in your finished good. Switching costs from one supplier to another one is higher. Now, when we're talking about switching costs, that could be a contract that you may have signed with that supplier saying that they're going to supply you for some given period of time. And if you break that, then there's going to be some sort of fee that goes along with that. That's a switching cost. Next one, suppliers. Not only do they have other customers, but they can go to other industries and they have other channels of sales that they can use. They can go retail, they can go wholesale, they can go online. They have multiple channels of sales. And the last one here, this one gets dangerous for them, is that supplier can integrate forward and take your position as well and become your competitor. So when we're looking at integration strategies, what we have to keep in mind is that occurs in something called the value chain, that linked set of value creating activities going from raw material all the way to the end customer. There's different activities that occur. You have manufacturing, you have wholesale, you have distribution, then you have retail, wherever that is in that linked set of activities. And suppliers are the ones that precede your activity. that means they can then move up in that value chain and then become a competitor of yours. All right, let's move to the next one. This is buyers. Buyers now have more power when there are few buyers with many supplying options to them. So I want you to think of this one and use Costco as an example of a company that has buyer power. So if there's relatively few Costco's out there compared to the number of other retailers, but there's multiple suppliers to Costco. The buyer, Costco, purchases in tremendous volume. And because of that, they're going to expect from those suppliers better pricing. If I'm buying 100 from you, price is this, but if I'm buying 10,000 from you, I expect to have a better price. Those who are supplying the buyers in this industry, there's a lot of them and they're made up of small companies. So they don't really have a lot of power when it comes to negotiating with the large buyer. Now I know that Costco there's Procter and Gamble and General Mills and some of those large companies do sell to Costco, but there's also hundreds of other smaller companies that do not, they're not large and they sell to Costco. All right. The buyer, Costco. The products that they sell are not differentiated. They're not unique. They're commodities. And so they're sold based on price, low price. And so they can then play one supplier against the other one because those suppliers that are providing them are selling them commodities. There's no switching cost going from one supplier to another supplier. It's low and simple. The supplying industry is made up of companies that have high fixed costs. In other words, they have to sell products to Costco in order to pay their fixed expenses. Costco, the buyer, has low margins and they're very price sensitive. And as such, they're going to be very, very tough in their negotiating on pricing. Now, this one's really dangerous. And when you own your own company, if you do, or if you go and work for a company, never, ever, ever let that buyer know what your costs are. As soon as they know what your costs are, they then determine what's the fair profit for you. Never let them know what your costs are. All right, here we go. Let's go to the next one. New entrants. Now what we're looking at is an industry that already has competitors in it. And we're looking at the threat of others outside the industry of entering into this industry. Okay, it's called a threat of entry. And what we're measuring here are the barriers that this industry has. The higher the barriers, the lower the threat. And conversely, the lower the barriers, the higher the threat. So let's look at some of these barriers. Well, first of all is this. If those in the industry have already achieved economies of scale, that's going to create a barrier for others entering into it because economies of scale gives them a cost reduction, gives them a cost benefit. If those in the industry are established and have brand name recognition and loyalty from their customers, it's going to be difficult for a new entry to come in and take business away from them. Customers are loyal to those existing companies. Third one, if to enter into this industry, there are high upfront capital requirements, that will be a barrier. Another one, those customers within this industry, for them to switch from one company to another company, there's a switching cost. They're going to be reluctant to switch. So a new entrant coming in, that's going to be a barrier for them as well. If this industry has distribution channels are already sewed up, or there's kind of restrictions on the distribution channels, if there's licensing patents, proprietary knowledge, Any kind of capital assets or experienced workers are gone. Any kind of subsidies that might exist, those would create a barrier as well. If the industry is somehow regulated by the government requiring some sort of operating license, like wireless communication, that's a barrier. And the last one is that those in that existing industry, if someone enters into it, will retaliate against that new entrant. That's another barrier. And again, as many of these barriers that exist, the lower the threat is going to be. Let's go to the next one. This is threat of substitute products. This would be a product or service that does the same thing that your product or service does, equal quality, at the same price or lower price than your product or service. And it's readily available to those consumers out there. That then creates a huge threat from this substitute product. Let me give you an example of substitute products. Here's milk, and then we have Oatly and we have Almond Breeze. Those are substitute products to milk. And Uber and Lyft are substitutes to taxis. There's many examples of substitute products that are out there in industry. Those were just a few of them. Here's our last one. This is industry rivalry. What we're measuring here is the intensity of rivalry that exists within an industry. Obviously, we need some competitive pressures within an industry, but we don't want to enter into an industry that has extreme rivalry that exists in there. So rivalry then is going to be high in an industry when those competitors in that industry are equal size. They're all small and they're all equal competitors. There's really no advantage from one to another one. And in fact, if you take away the name of the company, they all look the same. They have the same kind of resources and capabilities. They're going after the same customers with the same level of customer service and quality and the same pricing. And the products that are sold by these companies are all commodities. There's no uniqueness to those products. There's no differentiation. So you're not selling a product because it's unique. You're selling it based on its price. And since everyone in that industry is selling the same products to the same consumers, those consumers are only buying from that company because of their low price. Not unique, not quality, not customer service, none of that. They're buying because of the low price. Customers of the industry can switch from one company to another one easily, no switching costs. All the companies within this industry have the same strategy. Like I mentioned, it's going to be a low-cost strategy. The industry has developed to a point where there's no growth. So it's a mature industry. So it's gone through growth 1 and growth 2 stages, and now it's mature. There's no growth. The only way that a company can achieve growth is by taking business from another competitor. Exit barriers. It's difficult for firms that are in the industry to get out. Maybe they just, for some reason, can't get out. Those in the industry have high fixed costs because they've gone through that growth 1 and growth 2. They've added capacity, they've added expenses, and now they're in a situation where they're not growing anymore, but they still have these fixed expenses. They've got to generate revenue to pay those bills. Intensity of rivalry is great when all of these conditions exist. All right, I'm going to set something up for you guys. See how you handle this, okay? Bryce, you're going to be owning one company, and Mia, you have another one, and James, you have another one, okay? All of you guys are in the same industry. All of you guys are equal competitors. You all have the same product, and you're selling that same product to the same consumers out there. There's really nothing different between your companies. Those customers out there are, buying from one or another based on what your pricing might be for that week. going from one another. You all have high fixed costs. You've got to pay your bills. All right, Mia, you want to grow your company. Remember, growth is achieved at the expense of your competitors, James and Bryce. And currently you're selling a product, Mia, at $20. How do you go about growing your company, increasing your revenue? What do you do? Okay, somebody needs to get back in here. Hold on a second. I think I got somebody that got out and can't get back in. Let's see if I can do this.
Don't throw out the trash. I have to go through it all.
Okay. All right, got Spencer back in. Sorry about that. Okay, so Mia, did you hear my question? Do you understand it?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so what would you do? So you want to grow your company. You're currently selling your product at $20, and your two competitors are James and Bryce. And
Right. Probably maybe do a price reduction or decide like how I can change up my price so that it better fits my market and the consumers are able to like buy more of my product, which would thus increase my revenue.
okay, so how would you do that? You mentioned price reduction, right?
Yeah, lower my price maybe.
Okay. So you're currently selling at 20, and what would you lower it to?
Maybe like 18 or 15.
Okay, 18 or 15. All right, Bryce, James. Now Mia made a big strategic move here. She lowered the price of her products down to, let's say 18, Mia. Let's say 18. That's significant. Those buyers of that product are buying that product based on price. So they are now going to leave James's company and Bryce's company because your company is offering that same product that they offer $2 less. So they're coming over to you. So your revenues are increasing, aren't they, Mia? You're getting more sales, aren't you? Well, you are. You're getting more sales. So James, Bryce, what are you guys going to do?
I think that that really depends on the margin, because let's say like if the margin is really small and the base cost is $19, let's just assume, because it's a small product, the margin is probably going to be relatively small in it. So we're going to assume like a 5% margin. Then that means that Mia would either be selling at base cost or slightly below the base cost, meaning that she would be losing revenue. So it wouldn't be sustainable for a long period of time.
Right.
I would probably say that what I would personally do is I would take that opportunity to lower the price to about $19 to maintain at least a small margin so that it would be sustainable for a longer period of time.
Okay.
And then I would use any of the remaining margin to increase the quality so that it would show, because that would be sustainable for longer, meaning that the customers would see a consistency and like a quality increase. And then that would create a much longer term customer base in the long run.
Well, good idea. Good thoughts on that. Remember, you guys are really equal as far as every type of competitive dimension here. And so if you were to increase your quality, there's nothing to say that James or Mia couldn't increase the quality of theirs as well to match. Remember, you guys are selling commodities. So whatever that particular commodity might be, how much more quality could you put in it? Because those people that are buying it are just buying it based on price, right? But a good idea. So, and you're right, considering the fact that a product that sells for $20 probably doesn't have a great deal of profit margin in it. And so if you sell yours at 19, you're going to lose some sales, but maybe not all the sales, right? Now, Bryce, you're certainly losing sales. You're losing sales with James and you're losing sales with Mia. What are you going to do?
I think in terms of this situation, I think because they were lowering their price, I would personally keep the price at $20, and I don't know if this is really fair, but try to add some kind of value.
Yeah, you can't, it's a commodity.
Okay.
Yeah, I love
well-
the way you guys always try to figure out something to do besides the obvious. Yeah, you guys say, well, I'm going to increase quality. I'm going to do customer service. You guys are equal competitors. Doesn't exist. So the only option you have, if you don't want to continue to lose sales, is to reduce your price.
Yeah, I would have to either match or do something to
Okay.
stay competitive.
So general question to everyone now. Who's winning in this little price war between Mia and Bryce and James? Who's the winner on this thing? Is
I'd
it,
say whoever has like the price in the middle, because it's like I think a price is like a psychological thing. So some people like they'll try to go for the least price thing because they can't afford the more expensive one. But some other people are like, like they see a lower price as cheap. So that's another thing to consider. But they don't want the most expensive, so they'll go middle ground.
okay. All right. Well, it's a thought. But you think Mia might be winning, or James might be winning, or Bryce might be winning, or do you think the customer's winning? Who's benefiting from this? You guys are giving up profit is what you're doing. Spence is right. It is the customer who wins in this price war. And the three of you guys are losing. And what you're giving up really is your profit. But that's what the conditions of this industry has created for those competitors. The only way to compete is based on price. And the only way to gain market share is to try and steal business from your competitor. And the only way you're going to steal business from your competitor, since it's based on price, is by pricing. Now, you might think, well, this might not happen very often. It does. And it happens to large companies. And let me give you an example of one company that it happened to. It happened to General Motors back in 2008. General Motors had high union fees. They had high manufacturing. They had high material fees. They had high labor costs. All of those things were high. They had a huge amount of fixed expenses that need to be paid. So they were selling then their large vehicles, the Suburbans and the large trucks, at a price that would generate sales. And by doing that, they lost $2,500 on every vehicle that they sold. And there's a term for it. And that term is called profitless prosperity. Your revenues go up, but your profits stagnate or turn to losses. Profitless prosperity. And that's what this kind of industry rivalry will generate then. So if you're out there in an industry and you see then that you might be working for a company where these things are starting to develop, you need to start either trying to change your product mix, trying to diversify your products, try to differentiate your products, try to do things that will give you some unique advantage over those competitors in that industry. But these signs, they do develop, and it starts to develop when that industry starts to mature and there's no growth anymore. All right. So there's the 5. Gosh, I need help here. Bryce, I
I have a question, Professor.
Go ahead, Emilio.
So in that situation, I was thinking, I didn't know if it was like we can only do prices, but I was thinking maybe keep the price, but add like a warranty.
Yeah, but remember what you're selling is commodities. And one of the things that differentiates a product would be warranties. Everyone's selling the same stuff.
Right. So
Yeah.
would that be a solution? I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, if if you were able to do things like that, yes, it would prevent some of the erosion of your customers if they were looking for that warranty. Remember, that would be something that they would be wanting to have. But if it's just a commodity and they're buying it only based on price, then that warranty aspect of that product may not be that item that continues to have that customer return to you. Might not. So you'd really have to, I mean, if you have an industry and those products that are sold in that industry are commodities, and those buyers of those products in that industry are only buying it from companies based on low price, then, you know, it's a challenge. You have to do something to differentiate yourself. But great questions. Great questions.
I also have a question.
Sure. Hi, Joyce.
Hi. So what if this was like not a perfect competition market? Or like what if they were monopolies where they're like the only seller in that market? They wouldn't have that issue of competition. So is it possible to become a monopoly, or is that something that you can't become a monopoly? I don't know.
Gosh, I'm sorry. Can you just repeat that one more time? I had a message that came up I needed to respond to. Can you repeat that one more time? Sorry, Joyce.
Oh no, it's okay. If this wasn't a market where there was perfect competition, because I know, like I've learned that monopolies are basically the only sellers in a market, and they don't have competition because they can basically place the price at whatever they want, and people will still buy it at that price. So is it possible to become a monopoly, or is that something
yeah, that's a good question. And when we start looking at something called the industry life cycle, remember there are stages in that industry life cycle. We go from emergent to growth 1 to growth 2 to maturity to decline, right? So in this particular case, the example I gave here, we were in that mature stage. Now, certain characteristics occur from that mature stage going down to decline stage. And one of those characteristics of those stages is that competitors in the industry exit. And they'll exit because of the industry is becoming less profitable. They'll exit because they just go out of business. They'll exit because they've been absorbed by another company, those types of things. And anytime you start having the number of competitors start shrinking in the industry, it's going to give you a better competitive position. You may not be a monopoly, but you might be in a position where there's only, instead of 10 competitors, only 3 competitors. And now what you have is a market size that can actually support 3 competitors as opposed to 10 competitors. But that's a great question, Joyce. Did that answer what you were looking for?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, good. All right. So we talked about the 5 forces. Gosh, you know, I'm getting so old. I don't remember stuff anymore. And so, hey, Bryce, can you tell me what the 5 forces were that we just talked about? I can't remember. I'm getting really bad. Can you remember what they were, Bryce? Right, maybe he went off and, oh, there he is.
I'm sorry, I'm a little lost. What was
Yeah,
it?
can you kind of tell me again what were the 5 forces that we just covered? Can you tell me what they were?
I'm sorry, I must be as old as you. I'm a little confused.
Okay, well, we just talked about Porter's 5 forces, right? And we identified that there are 5 different ones. Can you tell me, can you list for me or tell me what those 5 forces were? Joyce, you got them? Joyce, you got them?
The number and power of a company's competitive rivals, potential new market entrants, suppliers, customers, and then substitute products.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you got the 5, right?
Thanks, Trace.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a little bit tough, you know, when we're in a classroom, I can kind of walk around the classroom and then I can, you know, come up there and make you uncomfortable by asking you a question, that kind of thing. So I can't really do that here, but thank you very much for both of you. Well, there's a sixth one. It's called a complementer. So this is kind of a relatively new, generally relative new force that Porter talks about. And it really came from, now complementers, first of all, have been around for a long time. You got a hot dog and a hot dog bun. The bun is a complementer of the hot dog. Okay. We know that. Okay. Or you have a hot dog bun, a hot dog, and then you have a mustard that goes along with it. Same thing. That's a complementer too. But this particular force of a complementer kind of came around and was identified when the smartphone came out, first was introduced. And when it was first introduced, there were applications that were more specific to that platform of that smartphone, as opposed to another one. So if you had the Apple phone, there might be applications that worked only on the Apple phone, not on another platform. Now, I know that that's long changed. Now, when you get a phone, the applications are really cross-platform. You just have to determine which one you have and you can download for that one. But so let me give you an example here. Let's say Joyce, a few years ago, has this smartphone, and on that smartphone, she has an application that she really, really loves. And there's another smartphone that they're advertising that does certain features, and she's thinking about switching from that smartphone that she has over to the new one. But one of the things that's preventing her from doing it is the application that she's got loaded on her smartphone. It's not available on the other one. That then becomes a barrier. It has prevented the competitor from taking business over to, or giving business to the competitor. That smartphone, it has become that force. So that complementer is there for her. All right, let me give you an example of another complementer, okay? Here we go. So we have Coffee Mate and coffee. Obviously, Coffee Mate is the complementer of coffee. Now, I made the mistake one time. This was a few years ago when we were meeting in person. In the classroom, I mentioned to the students in there, I said, you know, no one really goes out and buys Coffee Mate and drinks it as a drink. You add Coffee Mate to your coffee. And I had two guys, believe it or not, and I think they were baseball players too. They were good guys, but they were a little bit sat together, roomed together and everything. They said, we drink Coffee Mate as a drink. So, you know, my statement of nobody ever does this was wrong, because there are obviously some people out there, maybe it's APU baseball players, I don't know, that drink Coffee Mate as a drink. But here's the thing about the relationship between the two, the primary product and the complementer. If the price of Coffee Mate goes up, does it have a negative effect on the sales of coffee? What do you think? Lexi, what do you think?
I would say it would be the other way around.
Perfect. And you're right. You're 100% right. So if the price of Coffee Mate goes up, it really doesn't have an effect on the sales of coffee. But if the price of coffee goes up, it does have an effect on the sales of Coffee Mate. Very good. Thank you. Well, because I love you guys so much, what I've done here is added for you something that you can put in your final paper that makes your paper a little bit more robust, having to do with 5 forces analysis. Because your final paper, what I'm asking for you to do is to analyze the industry in which your company is competing and determine for me whether or not any of the 5 forces exist. So here's what I have for you. It's a little checklist. So you see the 5 forces here. And what you do is go through these different little boxes and indicate whether or not that indicator of that force is even present. And then from that analysis, you can then determine whether or not that force is great or not great in that industry, having an effect on that industry. You can take this information then, and you can transfer it to this slide. Now, this is the industry attractiveness scale. And from this, you can see that The barriers of entry for this industry are low. And if they're low, that means that that industry is going to be less attractive. You can see also that supplier power in this industry is high. That means those suppliers have influence over those who are buying in that industry. Customer power. That would be buyer power, customer power. That is moderate in this industry. Threat of substitute products is high in this industry. And then the rivalry among competitors is also high in this industry. So the general output or the general view then of this particular industry, whether it's attractive or not, is more towards the unattractive side than the attractive side. So you can add these two into your final paper and it gives you a more robust paper. All right, one final thing for you guys to consider today, and that is the competitive profile matrix. All right, now I love this matrix and I use this matrix every time that I go out and do a strategic analysis of a firm. It's very, very useful. Competitive profile matrix looks at those critical success factors for that industry in which that firm is competing. And then it identifies those critical success factors and determines how well that firm is doing on those factors relative to its competition. So we're going to list our competitors on this matrix. We're going to list and identify those critical success factors. And then we're going to give those factors a weighting of value based on their importance. And then we're going to rate how well our company does and our competitors. So let me show you how this works. First of all, let's talk about critical success factors. Every industry has factors that are critical for those firms to have in order for them to be successful. So let me give you an example. Restaurant industry. In order for a firm in the restaurant industry to be successful, one of the factors that it must attend to is food quality. You guys agree with me on that? Thumbs up if you do. Exactly. In order for a firm in the restaurant industry to be successful, they have to have good food. And if they don't have good food, they're going to go out of business. All right, that's one factor. Now, I'm going to open this up to you guys. Can you give me let's give me 4 more factors that would be critical for success in the restaurant industry? So we got food quality as being one. Clean. Spencer, you're right. Have you ever gone into, and Lexi says customer service. Perfect. Bryce. Did you have something, Bryce?
I also said customer service.
Location. Excellent. Joyce says location. And well, when we're talking about these factors, I mean, think about it. You as a customer, if you went to a restaurant and there was poor customer service, you would think twice about coming back, correct? If the customer service is terrible, most likely you would think twice about returning to that restaurant. How about when you go to that restaurant and you notice that the silverware that you're using to eat is still dirty, and you go to use the restroom and the restroom is filthy? Cleanliness. You start to think about whether or not where they're preparing the food, how clean is that? Right? So these are all factors that are critical for success for a firm in the industry, restaurant industry, excuse me. And location is also good. You know, if you're on the beach overlooking the ocean, that draws people in there. If you're overlooking the LA River Basin, not so much so, right? So location also. Pricing, what about pricing, right? All right, so we know then that of these factors that we just identified, some of them are more important than others, like food quality. Now, we know that customer service is important, but is customer service as important as food quality? Or location, is that as important as food quality? So we know that there are some that have a higher value than others. And the way that we rate these then is based on their importance relative to the others. The full importance is 100%. So what we'll do is proportionalize these different factors, giving them a value. Total value of all of them is 100%. So let's take a look at some examples of other firms and their critical success factors. Well, we listed restaurant, customer satisfaction, market share, employee turnover, food quality, price, location, service. Car dealer, sales volume, customer satisfaction, market share, diagnostic accuracy, location. Those are, so for different industries, we're going to have different factors. All right, here's how we go about doing this. First of all, we identify for that industry what are the most important factors, 10 to 15 of them. So we list them all down. And the way I do this when I'm doing a strategic analysis of a firm is I'll sit down with the principals of the firm. I'll sit down with head of marketing, head of finance, head of operations, and we will all discuss what they feel are the most critical factors for their firm in that industry. And they actually come up with some really good ideas: product quality, brand loyalty, management, whatever they might be. So we list them. And then what we do is prioritize them. Okay, you've given me a list. Which one is most important? The ones that are most important has a higher weighted value. Least important, lower weighted value. And then what we'll do is ask, how well is your firm doing on each of these critical success factors? So as an example, let's say that Bryce owns a restaurant. And Bryce knows that he's got good food quality, but he's competing against Joyce, and she's got excellent food quality. She's got a chef in her kitchen that just knocks out that food in great food quality. So we asked Bryce, how's your food quality? Rate your food quality. 1 being a major weakness, 2 being a minor weakness, 3 being a minor strength, 4 being a major strength. Bryce, being honest, goes, well, I know it's a strength for our firm. We have strong food quality, but it's not as good as Joyce's. So it's a strength, but it's not major. It's a minor strength. Now, if we're comparing against Joyce and she's listed in our competitors, we would then give Joyce a 4. She gets a major strength for food quality. What we're looking at is our firm relative to our competition. We then multiply our weighted factors times our rate, and we get a weighted score. And then we compare that with our competition. Here's what one looks like completed. Obviously, this is computer industry. We got Apple, HP, and Dell. Our indicators of rating is up here. 1 being a major weakness, 2 minor weakness, 3 minor strength, 4 major strength. We've listed our critical success factors and given them a weighted value. Now you notice that some of these, financial position, product quality, and customer loyalty, are rated highest. You've got one down here, web development. Yeah, it's important, but it's not a high weighted value as far as importance. Others are more important than that. And then what we look at is how well our firm, Apple, is doing relative to these particular factors. So in this case, Apple is saying that market share is a weakness, but it's a minor weakness. Pricing is a weakness, but that's a minor weakness. Our financial position, this was an older one, is a strength, but it's a minor strength. Our product quality is a strength, but it's minor. But our consumer loyalty, that's a major strength. All the way down. And we do this with our competition too, giving them a rating on how well they do on these critical success factors. And then we sum that total, and we can see from this then that Apple's competitive position relative to HP and Dell is that they've got some work to do in order to have a better competitive position against Dell, and they're in a stronger position against HP on many of these critical factors here. The other takeaway from this is this. We identify where we're really doing well: consumer loyalty, innovation, management. Can we exploit those? That's what we're looking for, opportunities to exploit those. And we're also looking for areas where we're weak relative to our competition. How do we fix those? What do we need to do to improve these areas that we're not doing so well relative to our competition? All right. Well, that's it today, guys. On Tuesday, we're going to pick this back up and we'll finish this chapter.